delighted to have you as part of our community. So Min, welcome. Thank you for being here. And of course, to acknowledge the presence of Paul Vincent Davis, whom Bart said he's just told me is his mentor. So that is so special to have you here. We're delighted to have you here. So welcome.
Thank you for being so gracious and at the drop of a hat. So we want to start our tour of the Shakespeare and Puppetry exhibition and also Paul Vincent Davis and the Art of Puppetry in that order. And I just wanted to mention, like really long people, I wanted to thank Bill Hall and Adrian Marks and Jolyn Gates who are on our advisory board for the Ballard Institute for being here. And in addition to Emily and Felicia, Yadavi Patil, who's our graphic designer, who's somewhere right here. Katya Belyavsky is not here, but she did all our video editing work. Liza Giger does our social media. Stephanie Santillo is working on collections management. Ray Dondero, a design tech student, did all the design in the Paul Vincent Davis exhibition. Olivia Baldwin helped with setting up, Rob Cutler from the Puppet Arts program, and a whole bunch of other people from Puppet Arts, Alyssa Matthews, Mackenzie Das, Anna Iorfino, Elise Vaness, Abby Bosley, Lauren, and then our museum assistants, Lauren Bryant and Lizzie Toronto, are in the front. So maybe when we get to Paul, I'll talk a little bit more about the help we've gotten for those, for that exhibit. We're really thankful for John Lechner, who's here somewhere, who's a puppeteer who made it possible for Paul to come all the way down from Boston, which is a schlep, as you know, and Honey Goodenough, another puppeteer friend who's been very helpful to Paul of late and for a long time. So that's my list of things. Bart reminded me it would be good to acknowledge that the land on which we gather, especially since we're about to hear at 2 o'clock, if you can stay for that show, Tales from the Seneca Nation of upstate New York, Raccoon Tales, a show that Paul created and Brad Shure will perform. This land is the territory of the Mohegan, Mashantucket Pequot, the Eastern Pequot, the Shaktakok, Golden Hill, Paugussett, Nipmuc, and Lenape peoples who've stewarded the land through generations, and we thank them for their strength and resilience in protecting the land and aspire to uphold our responsibilities according to their example. So we wanted to do this by inviting our friend Jungmin Song to give a short introduction to this super interesting exhibition, and then we'll go into the second gallery and have another super interesting introduction to the other exhibition. Does that make sense? I know you're
nervous.
I know you're nervous. I'll stand here and look at you accordingly.
First of all, I'd like to thank. This was my first project with Ballard. I hope there will be more to come. And I'd like to thank our super mighty director, John Bell, and Emily, and all the helpers who made all this possible. So we have a lot of objects some objects came from outside of UK and outside the US. So it was not easy to organize all the loans and shipping, and then as you see, we have some weird things coming through customs. So it was it was great for me to be here to learn all the complexity of organizing exhibitions. So Shakespeare. So here, we all know Shakespeare, and then it's done by humans for a long time, for last few hundred years. But here, what you see here will be, we know less about how it has been done with puppets. So here we I want to demonstrate that Shakespeare's text has capacity to accommodate puppets and objects, and also that I also want to demonstrate that like puppets also have capacity to carry Shakespeare's text in a way that humans cannot do. And then also the other thing is that I try to get a variety of things. You will notice that each object has its own character. They are all very different things. So I want to show you that there are a variety of things that can actually play Shakespeare or something beyond. So I'd like to start from here. It's Laurence Olivier's Hamlet, done by Grace Moore Works in mid-90s. The reason I want to start here is there's a kind of link between human actors and object here. So you see Laurence, sir, this was toy theater made based on the film that was directed by Sir Laurence Olivier, the great actor, and then he played the role of Hamlet. And then Grace Moore Works, who the company, I'm nervous because our director belongs to the company, so does work a lot with the toy theaters. So they created Hamlet shows using the toy theater that was created from the Laurence Olivier's film, 1948 film. And then for this particular show was not just a straightforward Hamlet play, it was also interweaved with the Laurence Olivier's memoir. So it was not just the Hamlet story, it was together with a great actress or life stories. Okay, good speak.
Yeah.
And then from that Hamlet, so we are kind of jumping to other scale. So from this size to that size. Actually, this was done by Bread and Puppet Theater. They are well known for this giant cardboard puppets, and this take on political issues taking political issues into their work, and then it's also great. They are puppet activists. Yes. You should be able to see in the show the bigger. This Ophelia. This is Ophelia, weeping Ophelia. She was the smallest of the big ones, so we couldn't bring the little ones in this space. So that's why Ophelia is here. No, she's still beautiful there, but yeah. But the bigger one, the king Claudius and the dead ghosts were much bigger, and then they were kind of standing up and collapsing down on the stage. And then there are other parts of the same show that was it's a totally out of joint Hamlet. You know the line. The Hamlet said, "Time out of joint." So there also in the same show there is this smaller hand puppet stage. What you see there is Hamlet realized that Polonius, Ophelia's father, was listening into his conversation with his own mother. So he called him rat, and then killed him. And then you will see that the proscenium arch is decorated with mousetrap. Then also the title of the show, the play with the play of Hamlet. And then also this Hamlet was also interweaved with the political situation. So I think Peter Schumann gave some focus to the background story of the Hamlet that was going with other countries surrounding Denmark. So that Hamlet show also interweaved with the criticism for the Trump era in the U.S. And we move on to Macbeth. We have five different five Macbeth and Lady Macbeth pairs in this exhibition. So you can actually compare them and then see how different they can be depending on how you interpret the text. So what you see on your right is wrestling Macbeth. Whole play was based on wrestling ring, and then so there were a lot of fights, in Macbeth. So it does make sense. So it's a power play, and then it comes together with that kind of fantastic show that was done with the puppets. What I found interesting was that Macbeth, you see there, remained silent all through the play, doing that. His lines were taken by other characters and narrators. That I found it quite interesting, like with comparing. He has long monologue like Hamlet, and maybe we come here is a Macbeth also done by Tiny Ninja Theater in early 2000. So it might be easy to guess, or it might not be easy to guess, but you see Macbeth and Lady Macbeth here in the castle, kind of talking about how to get the power. It's done by Mr. Smile and Mrs. Smile. So there are kind of irony between this grumpy couple or power greedy couple done by these two little figures. And then he's well known for the Dov Weinstein, who created this show, is very well known for using these tiny ninjas that come from this you get from gumball machines. So he says that they should have, all these little figures should have opportunity to play serious Shakespeare. And it's kind of, if you watch, you see able to see, right there now it's on, like, good timing, ninjas. So it is kind of funny, but he doesn't just go for comics. Somehow he managed to bring out all the serious intentions of original play. Okay, and then maybe we go there where you can see more, like, I can say more traditional sense of puppets. So we have, but they also have their own, based on their own unique interpretation of the play. So you see up there is done by Hogarth puppets. The show was on in 1959, I believe. Hogarth puppets is a company famous in the UK. They're a UK company. They are famous for their BBC TV show called Muffin the Mule. So they are one of the most important puppet company in the history of the British puppet theater. Their face is they got inspiration from Cubist aesthetics. So you can see this angular shaped carving on their face. And then this is done by Lindy Wright. Lindy Wright is the founder of the Little Angel Theater. It's some called the theater like home of British puppetry. There was the first puppet theater in London, and then she also is knighted. She's Lindy Wright MBE by Queen. because her contribution to puppet arts in UK. So the whole Macbeth characters were done by birds. So they made Duncan Duncan and his sons were swans, and then like witches were crows, kind of crows. So all the Macbeth was rooster. So at the end of the play, I think it's Macbeth and Macbeth's fight, you will see big cockfights as the end of the show. And so we move on to so this is one I kind of was worried. This is What Fools These Mortals Be. It's based on Midsummer Night's Dream by Fred Kerchak. Fred Kerchak is great performer as far as I can tell. So he says that these two puppets, that is Lysander and Demetrius, were the ventriloquist dummies he played with when he was a boy. And then his interpretation of the play was kind of relayed to. The whole story was kind of about like finding what is the meaning of love, and then that is also deeply connected to his personal stories. So there are like these dummies he played with, and then their whole personal story going on in the play, and then that came out as this weird and wonderful dolls here. I was a little bit worried too. I really wanted to display Hippolyta. You see here, actually Theseus put knife through her head in the show. That I wasn't sure if it is okay to do this here or not. But it was too strong an image or not. But it seems they look good here. I hope everyone enjoys them as much as I do. And the last one is Tempest by Shadowlight. Shadowlight is led by Larry Reed. Reed, based in San Francisco. He was trained in Bali, and he was a puppet shadow master, like Dalang in Indonesia. So as you can see that, aesthetically they have influence. There are influences from. I think I'm very good at timing today. I'm in sync with the video. So you see, even in the scenery, also there are like this, you see Asia in there, and then also their aesthetics, they have all sorts of influence, but from Asia. And then, if you know the story, it is set in a remote island. So from you kind of think about this exotic kind of atmosphere, kind of fit really well with the Tempest. And then this is the scene, these three Trinclo, Caliban, Stefano are chased by these weird monsters created by Ariel as a fairy. And then, so these were done in shadow screen, but you couldn't do shadow screen, so, but still you can see the puppets in front of you, and then if you see the back of on the wall, you can kind of get a glimpse of the images they project on shadow screens. Okay, thank you so.
What about?
Did I miss something else? Okay, sorry. This probably need the most. Oh, thank you so much. You're super mighty. So this is forced entertainment. Perhaps if you kind of learn contemporary theater and then like post-modern theater, then you will know the name. The Forced Entertainment is UK-based company that's been running for I think around 30 years now, 30 years. This is the first show actually. They usually create their own text through rehearsing and then devising process. Then this was their first project that was based on text. I think they did Shakespeare before once, but it was not like they didn't really do it to the end. But this was, and then they decided to do all Shakespeare 36 plays in their first rendition to, their first attempt to doing, and then they did it greatly. So they did all, so each play was, there were like 50-minute, around 50-minute long performance for each play. They performed it over like 9 days, I think, 4 by 9, yeah, it's 36. And then each play was played by different set of objects. So I'm not good at timing in this moment, but so Macbeth was this, maybe now you can guess. Macbeth is linseed oil bottle, boiled linseed oil bottle, and then this gray bottle jar was Lady Macbeth. And then the whole set of the object were like spray can, like paintbrush, nails, and like all the things you might find at the bottom of like box in your shed. And then they tell you the whole story, but interestingly, they don't really quote the lines. So you don't hear "sleep no more" in Macbeth, or you don't hear "to be or not to be" in Hamlet. They just tell the story. And then like for Shakespeare, like often like people know, oh, "to be or not to be" is from Hamlet, but what is that the story about? Then people don't know. But but they focus on the story, and they just tell the story, and then move the literature aside, and then highlights differently. Yes. This is Hamlet. Yes, by Bread and Puppet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you. Thank you. Bravo.
Oh, it's my debut. My debut performance in color.
Yay.
Yeah.
Very good. So we can proceed into the second gallery for our next extravaganza.
I'm just going to take
Okay, great. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I do that too. So, step right, come on in. There's lots more room. We can spill out to the sides here if we like. Come on in, come on in. I'd like to note some special guests today, Ralph Lee and Casey Donovan from upstate New York, great puppeteers. We hope to exhibit Ralph Lee's work in the future. And then Andrew Perial from the editor of Puppetry International, the Unima USA publication. And of course, there's so many other superstars here in the audience. But if everybody's here, we wanted to start by asking Bart Rocco-Burton to say a few words about Paul and Bart's relationship with Paul, work with Paul. Bart, this is Bart Rocco-Burton, the director of UConn's famed Puppet Arts program.
I just want to say a few words as thank you to Paul, and forgive me if I turn my back on you frequently because I'm addressing Paul here directly. Paul and I first met in 1974 as I was just getting interested in puppetry. He was running a workshop for the Garden State Puppetry Guild down in New Jersey, and it was on hand puppetry. And I had tried hand puppetry a little bit, but I had given it up because I have huge hands. And when I do this, that lump on the side of the puppet looks horrible. So I talked to Paul a little bit about it, and he looked at me and said, well, why aren't you doing it this way? All right? And I thought, I don't know why I wasn't doing it that way. So from that time, that is the way I have performed hand puppets and have taught now more than 30 years of students how to work this way. Paul has also shared with us the abilities of technique with the making of hand puppets, figuring out how to make the glove go properly around the hand, making full arms for hand puppets so they're not always this style of puppet. And this is something also that has been taught to the UConn Puppet Arts students for 30 years now. When we were on the road with Pandemonium, and Andrew, you can join me in this, and Jolene, we would always take a new show to the Puppet Showplace because we knew that Paul and his partner Mary Churchill would be our best critics to help us develop a new show. And we'd have the opportunity over a weekend to perform it 4 times for an audience, get a little bit of money, but usually have a good turkey dinner that Mary would make. So Paul, I just want to say thank you for offering yourself. You've been a mentor to me, you've been an unbelievable friend, and what you have taught me has influenced this program and continues to do so. So thank you.
I've been a puppeteer off and on most of my life, and I don't remember what year, but one year I decided what I really wanted to do was puppetry. But I had been a commercial artist, I sang in choruses and big clubs.
People could come closer maybe if you may.
Am I not projecting? I better project. I know how to project.
I know you do.
How to project.
You're a wonderful projector.
And somehow the art of puppetry came to me, and I decided that's what I wanted to do. And I tried marionettes, and I liked the marionettes, but it's difficult to do a story with one person and multiple marionettes. So I came down to glove puppets, hand puppets, that you can manipulate in many, many ways. And I discovered that hand puppets are one of the most difficult of all of the puppets to do well. Because the puppet's waist and butt is at the same joint. Whereas with people, the waist would be up here and the butt would be down here. So the puppet has the butt, the waist in front and the butt in back. I mean, that's kind of not realistic. And I worked on various techniques. I mean, one of the techniques that is you can actually make the head turn. You make the head go down, you make the head go forward, up. You have a lot of flexibility that way, which is more than you have with just this, or this technique. So that was my preferred technique. And what's interesting to me is I look at my puppets and I said, oh my God, they look so cartoony. When I started using this style, it was very modern, those perfect round heads with just a nose or not even a whole face on some of them. Whereas new and modern and up to date in the 40s, 50s. And the heads over here for Aladdin, I got more sculptural with them. I didn't want exact realism, but I used a sculpture technique that suggests reality without being real. And my favorite one, I don't know if she's up there, it's the old lady, my favorite head I've ever made.
Why is it your favorite head?
I just like the sculpture of it. It just turned out to be exactly what she needed to be. The thing about puppets is I've often been said, oh, well, puppeteers are just putting things on and wiggling them. Oh, you do not wiggle a puppet, ever. Unless the wiggle is part of what you want to do. What's funny, I was talking to Bart, what's your name?
Oh, Andrew.
Andrew.
Yeah.
Good friend, I've known him for years. I'm 85 and my brain isn't as good as it used to be. But one of the things that we worked on in his studio is we had a big rod puppet, a big full puppet made out of paper, newspaper, and we had to walk that puppet across the stage hand it to the next puppeteer who would take it and walk that puppet across the stage without it changing its movements. So that everybody had to walk that puppet exactly, so that the puppet didn't change character as it went across the room. Another thing you can do for practice and learning how to use puppets, it's very interesting, is you take something and move it. It doesn't matter what it is, and just make sure you keep it moving. One of the great teachers of puppetry, whose name I can't remember at the moment, old man coming here, but he's taught students by having them have a rope around them, and they're all standing in a circle holding the rope. And they have to make that rope move like water. Then they had to make it move like a storm, and everybody in the circle had to move that the same way every time. So that the movement of a puppet isn't just something you do, it's something you have to work and learn how to do to make it move so that it communicates with the audience. And there are so many things that I can tell you. I had one puppet who had a funny hat on. And one day, that puppet comes in, Rumpelstiltskin was the character. The puppet,
right
is
over
he up there?
there.
Yes, okay.
Little green guy.
Oh yeah, the little green guy is Rumpelstiltskin. And he came in one day in a performance, and he bowed. And as he bowed, he has a cap with a
Tassel?
tassel at the end. And he bows, and the tassel went around and then went under. And the audience laughed. They thought that was funny, and I said, that's good, I'm gonna keep that. I had worked for hours and hours and hours of bowing that puppet so that it bowed the same way every time to get that, because I didn't, you just bow it, it's not gonna do that. But that particular day and that particular thing, it did just what it did, and then I had to learn how to do what it did so I could do it again. And so many things are that way. You discover a way to make a puppet walk. Because some of my hand puppets have legs that you can see, and those puppets can actually walk on those legs because they're attached to your wrist in a certain way that the movement of the wrist will move them like legs. One time Bart was in China, I think, and he asked me to take over 3 of his classes. And his glove puppet classes did pretty much what I did, and I taught glove puppets. They had another class that was doing marionettes, and that was the first day they were going to do marionettes, and they were expected to start carving marionettes that day in wood. And I have never carved a marionette. So I told the audience, the students, that I can't tell you much about marionettes because I don't carve my marionettes in wood. But I can tell you this, you have to know what you want that puppet to look like. You have to know what you want that puppet to do. Because if you don't build the joint right, you have a puppet that'll go down, but the knees won't bend if he wants to kneel. Or if it has to walk in a certain way, you can't just pull the string and make it walk. It has to be jointed for a certain movement. And you have to study, if you want hand movement, how do you going to make that joint so it'll move like a hand? And the hand may be still in a position, but it can still be very expressive, in movement. And you've got to know how to joint that hand. And I taught them play with joints for the elbow and the knees. If the puppet has to kneel down, those knees have to bend much more to get the legs underneath than if the puppet just has to walk. And so I was able to talk to them about carving a marionette, even though I've never carved a marionette in my life. And I so enjoyed that because it made me think too. You don't just lecture puppets. The other thing I wanted to say, all of these puppets are designed with perfect round heads and big noses and funny eyes. And when I first started doing this, that was a very modern, up-to-date look. Now they look pretty cartoony, which they didn't when I started doing that. Do you have any questions?
Well, I thought maybe I could explain the exhibition and sort of explain the different parts and the different productions of your different productions, and then maybe you could jump in and comment or tell us where we've misunderstood the whole enterprise.
Well, no, I don't know that you've misunderstood anything.
Yeah, no. But it's been a great pleasure for us to work with you. We did an oral history. Our grad assistant Felicia Cooper asked you questions at the Puppet Showplace, and I mentioned earlier that Roxy Myram and the Puppet Showplace staff have been really great. That's where you were the artist in residence for so long, and part of that was just understanding more and more. You know how it is, like you know someone and then you realize you didn't really know them. How the nature of your work and the art of puppetry is the title of this exhibition, because you've said quite eloquently in different times and places, and even just now, that your interest in puppetry as an art form. And I think in particular with the performance of Raccoon Tales that Brad Shore is going to do at 2 o'clock, when I saw that, the first show at 11, I was thinking, oh yeah, this is a really well-written show. The puppets are really well made, the stage, and Brad does an excellent job, I think, following in your footsteps of doing really well-crafted puppet movement and timing. So that the art of the puppet theater is something that excited me about all of your work. And we divided this exhibition, or structured it around the spectacular Aladdin and his wonderful lamp. Then over here on this wall, we call that fairy tales and what do we call it? Fables and fairy tales. And you mentioned Rumpelstiltskin, and there's 3 characters from Raccoon Tales, and Beauty and the Beast, and then 3 of your Japanese-influenced puppets. And you were saying you were being kind of modest about your style here, that you said it looks cartoony, but what I noticed, sort of having relationship looking at your puppets, is what a distinct and finely honed, strong puppet design style you have, which I think is really important for puppetry. When you want the puppet to read, and all of your puppets do that in really amazing ways. So I don't know if you had any thoughts about those particular puppets over there. The Japanese puppets, too, I wanted to ask you about at some point.
All right. At one point in my life, I was hired to go to Japan and perform in, I don't know, I was there for a month and did 1 or 2 shows every day. And they were having a festival throughout Japan, because one of the things that happens in Japan, the old technique is that whatever your parents do for a living, you have to do for a living. It's typical Japanese old-time thinking. And they had built all of these wonderful neighborhood performance spaces, but they didn't have that many puppeteers that could perform in them, especially for families and children. They had the bunraku and the real strong Japanese style. And so they hired American and Western European puppeteers to go through to have shows in these performing spaces. And it was lovely. I had a wonderful time in Japan. I really did. I performed in English, unfortunately. I should have done it in Japanese. But somebody had told me that everybody in Japan was learning to speak English, and that would be a help to them. I don't know whether that is really true or not, but I believe the person who told me that, and so I went on and did it. And I should have learned to do the show in Japanese. It was a very short show. They had a number of puppeteers performing at the same time. So it's a short show. But I should have done it in Japanese instead of English, but that was my problem.
And it's like looking at some of your writing, the Japanese focus on the art of puppetry and Japanese techniques like the visible puppeteer and bunraku later influenced your own work. And it seems to me that it runs parallel to your own sense of puppetry as an art form. In Japan, puppetry is a very high art form, and you have a similar sense of art
I
of
absolutely
puppetry.
believe that puppetry is an art form. And the thing that is important to me is the puppet is not the performer of the show. The puppeteer is the performer of the show. And the puppet is the performer's, say, violin. The violin does not play itself. The violinist makes the music.
Mhm.
Same thing is true with puppet. The puppet can't act on stage. The puppeteer, using the puppet, has to create the acting and the mood and the movements and the shape and the activity of the individual puppets. The puppet up there, the horse on that thing up there. The horse comes in and is dancing along, and with a clown puppet on him, riding him like a horse. And the feet move, the horse's legs move. And then the horse breaks down, stops moving. And the puppet riding the horse is sad that the horse has stopped, and he tries to get it starting, and he shakes it, and even gets mad and kicks it. And then he realizes he likes the horse, and it isn't working. So he goes over and comforts the horse because he kicked it. It's not a real horse, it's a pretend horse anyway. And then he remembers that the horse needs to be wound up. So he gets the key, winds up the horse, and the horse gets up, he jumps on the horse and rides off. Happy ending. But the problems with working the horse and the puppet in so many different ways, with your hands limited to how much you can actually turn them, it was quite a chore to do it. But like I say, the puppet is my musical instrument, or my instrument. And I have to learn all the time how to move the creatures. When I was doing my Aladdin show, Aladdin comes in, and he had legs for walking, and I wanted him to sit down on the platform, and he just went down, and he went cross-legged. And that worked for me. That was perfect. And then I did the rest of the show. And then I went home and tried to make him do it, and he wouldn't do it. I had to practice it and practice it and practice it. Whatever move I made that moment in that performance, I had to come back and remember what I did before I could get him to sit cross-legged again. But I did, and I worked on it. And many places where you have a puppet, and this part suddenly works for the audience, and you didn't intend it, so you want to make it work for the audience that way again because it worked communication.
I feel like the unintended accidental movement that you discover and then use, I think that's something that all puppeteers,
It
sounds very familiar, and to recognize that is so important.
And I have done Shakespeare with puppets. I think we use rod puppets.
Right. We have your Richard III puppets here.
That's Richard III. No, that's Richard III. Yes.
And
Lady Anne.
Henry VI lying dead on the bier.
Yeah.
And Lady Anne.
Yes, it's a wonderful scene because he has killed her husband and her husband's father just in battle. just the day before. And so he comes in and figures out what he's going to do and decides he's going to be king. And then Lady Anne comes in and is mourning over her dead family, you know, her husband. I think it's her father-in-law, but she called him father. And she's mourning over him, and he comes over and proposes marriage to her. And she gets furious, and there's this wonderful thing between, at one point, Lady Anne spits in Richard's face. And she says, "Why do you spit on him that loves you?" He starts out mad and catches himself and has to go into, he's proposing to her. You know, him that loves me. And then she goes through this whole thing where she's poisoned, da-da-da-da. And then finally he talks her into marrying him. Which in Richard's time, the lady, if she didn't have a husband or a father, had no way to survive because her whole family is gone. And she knows she needs a man to protect her. So she agrees to marry him. And in the play, he says, "Kiss me goodbye." And she turns to him and she says, "Since you teach me how to lie, pretend we have kissed already." And she bows and goes out. A brilliant line for her.
Right.
But that's the end, and that's the end of the little skit that we did.
Not a kid's show.
Not a kid's show at all.
I wanted just to mention, like, you're from Virginia. You started out doing puppet shows as a kid, but then you studied graphic design, and you worked as a graphic designer in New York City, and held, so you were working in an ad agency, I think,
Yes.
and then you decided to you didn't drop it all because you continued to graphic design, some examples of which are right here in relation to puppetry. And like many puppeteers like Tony Sarg or W.A. Dwiggins or Peter Schumann or Edward Gordon Craig are all great graphic designers, as you are, super interesting. But then you in the 60s you said, you know what, I don't want to do that, I want to be a puppeteer.
Yes.
Kind of sketchy move.
The funny story, the
But
funny
you did.
part of that story is that I was working for an advertising agency, and the head of the advertising agency was the brains of the whole operation. He knew advertising inside and upside down, and he was in control of the whole office. And one day he died. And they decided not to continue the business because they didn't have his brain. So I found myself without a job, and I had just gotten divorced from my first wife, so I didn't have a family to take care of. I didn't have a job. What am I going to do with my life? Puppets.
Right. Just logical.
Logical, that's what I wanted to do. That's what I've wanted to do all my life, but I have done all my life. And so I decided to be a puppeteer. And the first puppet show I built was inspired by the, it's the story of the dragon who doesn't want to kill or
St.
eat
George.
people.
St. George and the Dragon.
What?
St. George and the Dragon.
It's a St. George and the Dragon, but it's about the dragon being a good dragon.
The
and a nice
reluctant dragon.
Yeah, the reluctant dragon. That's what the story was. And I wasn't sure, I wasn't secure in myself to do all the voices myself. So I got actors to act parts on tape, you know, real tapes, what we used in those days. Wow, big reels, little reels. And I got the actors to do it and put the music in and had it all edited to the show. And halfway through the show, I realized I wasn't performing for the audience. I was performing for the tape recorder. And I said, that's not performing. And so after that show, I said, I'm never going to do a tape show again. I'm going to do all the lines live, and so I did. And one time I got laryngitis and missed a lot of my performances I should have done, but I couldn't do it because I couldn't talk. But I never used a tape recorded show again.
I think the 2 o'clock performance of Raccoon Tales is going to be in 2 o'clock, so maybe we should go a few more minutes. And I wanted to say that some of your early work was with after Virginia, you went to New York and worked with Carol Fegan in the National, I'm forgetting the name.
National Theater of Puppet Arts.
National Theater of Puppet Arts, and you did a number of Shakespeare shows there,
Yeah.
and then came to Puppet Showplace Theater and Mary Churchill, who was your partner for so many years, and did all these variety of shows. The ones over here we're calling it Puppets as Modern Theater, and including Androcles and the Lion and King Midas, which you did as Tales from Ancient Greece and Rome, and the Richard III, which I think you first maybe did with Carol.
I did that with Carol.
And then Shakes versus Shave, with the puppet play that George Bernard Shaw wrote. One of the things that interested me, and I think Roxy Myram explained this to me, that with Jojo and the Orange Ball, which is on the top left up there with the tree and the ladder, it really has the kind of timing and dramaturgy of something like Samuel Beckett's.
Act Without Words, #1.
Well,
It's
I was,
spun off of
okay, and you also performed Beckett's Act Without Words,
Yes, I did.
which is an object piece. So I love the fact that Beckett and Shakespeare have been part of your repertoire, and that you've used puppets to address those sort of major, and Shaw too, these major English playwrights, or playwrights in the English language.
Right. I just want to say one other thing, that in puppetry, it can be done any way, whatever you want to do. For instance, opera sings Shakespeare. Well, of course they have to change and rewrite Shakespeare to perform Shakespeare in opera. Ballet does Shakespeare, and it has to change to do it all in movement. And when you do a puppet show of Shakespeare, you're not doing Shakespeare using puppets. You're doing a puppet play using Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way it has to go. Doing Little Red Riding Hood with puppets. You know, it's a puppet play.
Mm-hmm. Right. So maybe we could, I wonder if we should continue more informally. I think we're going to open the house for the 2 o'clock show relatively soon. But I'm thinking maybe folks, if it's okay with you, could come up and talk with you more about your
Ask
work.
questions, talk to me, anything.
And we thank you very much for being here. Thanks, John Lechner, for bringing Paul here, and thanks everyone for coming. Come back to other events here at the Ballard Institute if you're not going to be at the 2 o'clock show. Thank you very much.